Hey, thanks for checking out my video. This is going to be my 322 Trial of the Ancestors guide for Frostblade's Trickster. There's going to be three different POBs linked in the description. I'm going to talk about some tips and stuff, and then we'll go over the POBs a bit. So here's an overview of the build. The build is completely carried by Heat Shiver and Nightblade Elusive Crit Multi for damage. And then we also have charges, double damage, intimidate, shocks from yoke, and big map clear from additional strikes. For defense, we get fortify, we get freeze, which is a huge defensive layer, cap spell suppression, elusive, avoid damage, pretty much 90% chance to evade, and extremely high life on hit leech recovery. So overall, pretty good defenses and great DPS. Here's a quick mapping showcase. I'm not going to play this entire thing. I'm just going to show you a second of it. There's an essence, gets deleted instantly. You can see the build moves around very quick, and everything just dies instantly pretty much. Just whirling blades around. Your multi-strike and your additional strikes will auto-target everything around, and everything will just die very quickly. Very good at mapping. All right, that's about it for that. And then here's a map or a boss showcase. This is Uber Cyrus from last league that I did, and you can see he dies in about 2 seconds. And you can tell that's Uber because Uber is the only version that drops that flask. So yeah, one more time. Very good boss DPS. This build can pretty much do everything. You can do Wave 30 Simulacrum too. Okay, warning, disclaimer. Frostblades scales with weapons, primarily, unlike spells which scale with gem levels. If you're a new player and you're unfamiliar with how to craft and get weapons, you might find leveling Frostblades to be frustrating and painful. It's not the fastest leveling build or league starter. It's not Magma or Flame Totem, Flame Wall, right? You will not be breaking any records leveling Frostblades. You'll actually have to fight bosses, especially in the first few acts. They're not going to just get deleted. So either be aware of this and spare me the leveling sucks comments, or just choose a different league starter that's easier. But if you do decide to go Frostblades, I promise it gets much easier past around level 30, 35 or so. So here's some tips to get through the hard part, which is Act 1 to 2. After Act 3, you're cruising. Duelist Mule, okay? I recommend that you mule some gems from a duelist, which is Ancestral Protector, Ancestral Call, Ruthless, and Steelskin. And then you also get a second Quicksilver Flask. And you get more chances for green links, or green red links. So here's what that looks like. You make a duelist, you run up, kill Hillock, come to town, check for links. There's one right there you can see I found. Then you run to Tidal Island and you kill Hailrake. You come to town, you get your Quicksilver Flask, you buy Ancestral Call and get Ruthless, and then you run to Mudflats and you click on the three things in Mudflats, and then you click on the thing on the wall, buy Submerged Passage, and then you come back, you get your Ancestral Protector and Steelskin, and then you check for links one more time if you want, and then you stash everything, and that's it. And you can see that timer there. It took me about 5.5 minutes to do that. So I think it's totally worth it to do that, but it is optional. Other things, get a heavy belt early. That's going to give you the strength to use Ancestral Protector. Early on, you can use any kind of weapon you find that's good. You don't have to use a claw in Act 1 because Frostblades gets like no claw scaling, claw specific scaling in Act 1 basically. So if you find any good weapon, just use it. Another good tip is if you vendor an iron ring with a blue gem, you'll get a sapphire ring, which will give you cold resist for Merveil, which makes Merveil a little easier. Brutus and Merveil are the most painful fights to get through. If you can get through them, the rest of it is real easy. So you can just use Frostblades and Frostbomb and Ancestral Protector to kill Brutus, but if you think that's too slow, it's going to take you about a minute or a little more maybe to kill Brutus. But if you want to kill him faster, you can try some of this other tech here, which might save you a few seconds if you're really worried about that. Make sure if you're using Ancestral Call that you swap it out for Ruthless before you do any boss. Okay, so here's what Brutus looks like. I'm going to show you. So when you fight Brutus, it's going to look like this. Okay, it's going to be slow. He will die. Okay, but it's going to be slow. And if you watch the timer down here, it takes me around a minute to kill Brutus. You see, a little bit more than a minute. So just be aware of that. Don't get to Brutus and be like, oh my god, my build sucks. It's bad. How can I play this, right? And then I'll show you what Malachi looks like just as a comparison. So when you get to Malachi, this is what your damage is going to look like. So watch the heart here that comes out. See, that heart just died in 1 second, right? Malachi, you can see his HP is chunking down, right? And then you see the second heart comes out, and then look, that heart dies in 2 seconds. So by the time you get to Malachi, or even earlier, as soon as you get your Trinity online, basically, your damage is just completely fine. So just suffer through the first few acts, and then you'll be cruising after that. As soon as you get into Act 3, you're going to want to try to get Trinity online. You need Wrath and or an added lightning damage prefix to be able to proc Trinity consistently. Trinity is insane damage and penetration. It's almost like having two gems in one. So get Trinity on, and then you'll be cruising. For claws, you can use pretty much anything. It doesn't have to be lightning damage, at least at first. Just get anything that you can find that has good damage on it, and it'll do just fine. But this one right here would be really, really good with lightning damage on it, with an open prefix for fizz damage and attack speed. This claw would carry you through like Katava basically, or even farther. All right, let's get into the POB. So here's a day one POB. I'm going to show you it from Act 10 Katava basically. Here's an Act 10 Katava tree. If you look in here, there'll be some leveling trees, and then Act 10 Katava about what your tree should look like, and then a level 85 tree. This is a day one POB here. So you might see this number here and be like, what is this damage, right? This is like your damage when you enter maps, okay? And this is with a claw like this, which is just a essence and a crafted fizz damage craft. That's it, okay? And a 4-link also. So this is with 4 links and no Trinity, okay? So when you get to this point, just watch how fast this damage goes up, okay? If you get a 6-link, put on Trinity and put on damage here, right? And then you get this gear all sucks. You put on Heat Shiver and you put on Yoke, and then you check Freeze and you check Shock, and look at that. We're over 2 million damage already. Uh, just like that. And what was the other thing I wanted to look at? Anyway, your damage is going to go up really, really quick. And then if you get like a slightly better claw, this one has a little bit of crit and a little bit of attack speed on it. We're well over 2.5 million damage already. So yeah, this is a day one POB with day one gear. Oh, auras, that was the other thing. So this is with Wrath and Herald of Ice initially, but if you turn these off and you put on your map auras, this is what you're going to run when you get to maps. Grace, Hatred, Herald of Ice, Precision. And look at that, we're over 3 million DPS already. And that was with a better claw. Go back to the crappy claw, we're still at 2.6 million DPS. So day one POB, this will be linked in the description. You can check out, it's got some gems in here for leveling, what auras you should be using for the campaign, and then once you get to maps, the rest of the gems are all here. Maps, auras, campaign links with no Trinity, campaign links with Trinity, and then your 6-link setup once you hit maps. And then if you want to look through the trees, there's an Act 1 tree here that rushes the Strike Mastery, but you don't have to do that. You can go for this Pen first or the Leech first if you prefer, whichever one you want. Take these in any order basically up to this point. And then after that it goes Act 3, 4, 5, and then on from there you can see. You basically prioritize attack speed first, and then you add the crit later on as you level up. So yeah, that's the POB. And I'll show you the items a little bit more, I guess. This shield and the rest of the items, I put notes on them for what you should prioritize. Like chest, get fortify when you can, but this just has suppression and resist and an evasion essence and crafted int. That's it. These gloves, life, suppress, resist. Boots, you can see how bad those boots are. Put brittle on whenever you get a chance. I think brittle's good for crit. Yoke when you can get it. Might be expensive early. For the helmet, before you get Heat Shiver, try not to rely on stats and stuff from the helmet that you're not going to have when you get Heat Shiver. So Heat Shiver doesn't have any stats on it, right? It just has two resists. So don't like get a bunch of strength or int on your helmet and then rely on it, because once you get Heat Shiver, you're not going to have that anymore. So keep that in mind. Same thing with the amulet too, really. You can see these rings here is just strength and resists. Attributes resists. That's all these rings have. They're nothing. Belt is strength and resists. That's all you need early on. And then going into maps, we have 80% chance to evade here. This is with Grace. We have, if I put this back to 85, level 85, we have cap spell suppression. We have 80% evade. We've got pretty good life on hit recovery already. Fizz damage mitigation is very, very low, so you might still occasionally die until you can get your Fizz mitigation taken care of later. But the damage is more than enough to cruise well into maps already at level 85. And this is all day one gear here, except for maybe Yoke. Yoke might be a little too expensive to get on day one for some players, and maybe Heat Shiver too, but hopefully not. But anyway, this POB will be in the description. Check it out. Notes in the POB. I put a bunch of notes here on what you should be looking for as you go through the acts. How to get Trinity on, some video links for crafting guides that I did from last league. These will all still be perfectly applicable for this league. How to make a shield, claw, gloves, chest, basically from scratch crafting guides. And then down here, there's a bunch of trade links for like useful stuff for the build. Watcher's Eyes, Yokes, Heat Shiver, rings, belt, claw, cluster jewel, a bunch of stuff here. So check out these trade links. For bandits, kill them all. I don't think Alira is worth taking because you don't really scale crit early, and you don't really need the mana regen either by the time you get to Act 2 because you have Leech by then. So just kill all. Pantheons, I like to go with these ones. Pause here if you want to read more about that. Additional strikes are super, super important. You take the strike mastery early, but later you're going to get +2 strikes from gloves. And if this helps you stay alive while you're mapping, because you freeze everything on the screen. If you don't have strikes, you're going to die more because stuff's going to hit you because you're not freezing it. Pierce is important to have too because it'll help your Herald device clear stuff better. If you don't have Pierce, your Herald device is not going to kill stuff because your Herald device doesn't freeze. So pause here and read this. If you don't know how Trinity works, pause here and read this. Basically, we proc Trinity with Heat Shiver. And Heat Shiver gives you fire damage, which procs the cold part of Trinity. Mapping strategy. LA Reflect, you have to reroll. You'll kill yourself with Frostblink, even if you have Awakened LA damage. The rest of the mods are doable. Some of them are annoying, like cannot leech, cannot regen. And then for Exarch Altars, which is what I like to run, the more damaging stuff you take, the more dangerous it's going to be. So just take these at your own risk. You might get one shot if you take a bunch of dangerous altars. For tattoos this league, we don't know everything yet, but what we do know, it's hard to say which ones will be the best. I'll have to wait and see. But you're only going to have probably maybe 5 or 6 dex nodes to give up for tattoos because attributes are very tight on this build. So you're not going to really be able to give up any strength or intelligence. But dexterity, you should have a little bit extra, so you can give up maybe 5 dex nodes for tattoos. So we'll wait and see on that. The new gems. Returning projectiles, it's 61% less damage, which is basically 40% more damage, but it's only for the returning projectiles, and so it's not really worth giving up a link for. It's going to lower your ability to freeze because your strike hit is not going to get any damage bonus from this. So I don't think this gem is good. I would avoid it. Trauma support, it's bad. Okay, you're going to kill yourself with it. You're going to stack up like 27 stacks of trauma based on how fast we're attacking, and it's going to make you take like 15k damage per second. So you're not going to survive that unless you make major tweaks to the build. So I can't recommend this. The other one, volatility, it's for dot builds that need to ramp up a max hit. Frostblades needs all the damage you can get, not this less damage penalty. It's going to be bad. Don't use it. All right, here's some other stuff people ask me all the time. How do I survive? How do I freeze and proc Trinity? And how do I get more damage? Okay, these are all things you do right here to get more damage. So pause the video here and read this if you need to know any of this stuff. Another POB in the description. Ruetoo and Quantrik made a tankier version of the build that I'm going to include in the description too. And it has a little bit different tree, ES overleach, more life, more ES, a little bit less damage, but it's a tankier version. So if you want to play a tankier version, that'll be linked in the description below. So thanks to those cats for doing that. Quick note about the ES Overleach. I don't like to run ES Overleach because you rely on Blood Rage for mapping to get your frenzy charges. Because we have such good charge duration, if you get frenzy charges while you're mapping, they will last like into every boss fight, like Conquerors, Elder Guardians, Shaper Guardians. You will always have them up when you go into those fights using Blood Rage. But if you use Blood Rage, it basically counteracts the ES Overleach because the degen from Blood Rage is more than your ES leech rate. So your Overleach can't outleech the degen. Uh, so the higher leech rate that you see here is including instant leech per second. So if you take off that instant leech, the ES leech rate is actually less than the degen from Blood Rage here. So that's one drawback to it. But this POB that they made is definitely tankier though, so check that out if you want a tankier version. If you still have questions, check out my full in-depth guide that I released last league. It's still going to be completely applicable. Everything's unchanged. So if you have more questions, check out that video. It goes into much more detail about a lot of the build's mechanics. That's about it for this league start one. Thanks a lot for watching. Good luck in the new league. What do we call this league? Is it Ancestors League or is it Trials League? What should we call it? Comment below. Tell me which one we should call it. Subscribe to my channel. I'll put up more PoE stuff kind of regularly. I do a lot of crafting stuff, some guides, Frostblade stuff. I might do some updates on the build, how it goes this league, and give me a like on the video. And yeah, that's it. So thanks a lot for watching, guys. See you next time.